told you we shouldn't have been pushing so hard.
You felt it before, that crushing MS fatigue that makes even lifting your coffee cup feel like a marathon. Your body screams for rest, your medication label warns you about energy depletion, and everything logical tells you to stay on that couch. Before we go further, I want to reintroduce you to someone who's been with me since the beginning of my MS journey. Some of you may remember him from my MS is Blind video series. This is ReRe the Starfish. His name stands for Relapsing Remitting MS, the type of MS I actually have. ReRe first appeared to me during one of my darkest moments with MS when I was struggling to make sense of my diagnosis.
I'm with you all day, every day.
ReRe represents that internal voice we all have with MS, sometimes challenging us, sometimes encouraging us, but always present. He's with me all day, every day, just like MS. Sometimes ReRe reminds me of my limitation. You can't stand that long. Your balance isn't good enough for this.
This looks way too hard for us.
But over time, I've learned to work with these limitations rather than against them. ReRe and I have developed a partnership of sorts. If you haven't met ReRe yet, I encourage you to check out my MS is Blind series, the MS is Blind Part 1. The science is clear on this. Regular physical activity reduces MS fatigue up to 60% in clinical studies, better than many prescription medications designed specifically for fatigue. As a pharmacist, I understand the biochemistry. Exercise increases mitochondrial function, your cellular energy factories. It reduces inflammatory cytokines that contribute to fatigue. It improves neural efficiency. But here's the problem, and it's a big one. The very symptom that exercise helps, fatigue, is the same symptom that makes starting exercise feel impossible.
That's great.
You know that moment when your body says, absolutely not? That's where the real battle happened. Therefore, I developed what I call the 5-minute promise.
I'm with you all day, every day.
A technique that helped me fight through that intense fatigue that I was feeling, that initial fatigue barrier. The 5-minute promise is simple.
5 minutes? Psst, that ain't gonna do anything.
Commit to just 5 minutes of movement. That's it. If after 5 minutes you still feel terrible, or after 5 minutes I still felt terrible, I gave myself full permission to stop. Commit to just 5 minutes of movement. That's it. If after 5 minutes you still feel terrible, or after 5 minutes I still felt terrible, I gave myself full permission to stop. That won't do anything. But here's what happens in those 5 minutes. Your body begins to produce endorphins. Blood flow to your brain increases. Those sleepy mitochondria wake up and start generating energy. About 80% of the time, once you cross that 5-minute threshold, you'll find you can continue. The other 20%, well, you still gave your body 5 minutes of medicine it needed. I still gave my body 5 minutes of medicine it needed.
Jeez Louise, we are feeling better.
When I implemented this approach consistently, my energy levels stabilized, not just on exercise days, but every day. My need for fatigue medications decreased significantly. I was fascinated by this non-pharmaceutical intervention, having such profound effects. The data is compelling. Exercise is medicine, in the most literal sense of the word. But there was still a problem. Not all exercise affected my MS the same way. Some activities left me energized, while others triggered symptom flares. I remember one week where I tried a high-intensity spin class. The instructor was motivating, the music was pumping, and I felt great until I didn't. 2 hours later, I could barely move my legs. Spasticity really kicked in.
I told you we shouldn't have been pushing so hard.
Therefore, I began systematically testing different exercise modalities, intensities, and durations to identify the optimal approach for MS specifically. What I discovered was that the relationship between exercise and MS fatigue follows a bell curve, not a straight line. Too little movement keeps you stuck in the fatigue cycle, but too much intensity can trigger post-external malaise or fatigue and symptom flares. The sweet spot, what I call the neuroprotective zone, is where the magic happens. In this zone, your body produces brain-derived neurotropic factor, BDNF, a compound so powerful for neural health that the pharmaceutical industry is actually trying to synthesize this compound in pill form. I can hear Riri now. That sounds great for other people, but my fatigue is different. My MS is worse. Sound familiar? But here's what I've learned in my years of having multiple sclerosis and being a pharmacist at the same time. The principles work across the spectrum of MS severity. We just need to adjust the application. Whether you're running marathons with MS or exercising from a seated position, the neurological benefits of finding your movement sweet spot remain the same. The research confirms this. A 2021 study showed that even passive movement, having someone else move your limbs for you, produced measurable improvement in fatigue levels. But I know what you're thinking. If exercise is so beneficial, why didn't my neurologist make a bigger deal about this?
They never have enough time to talk about what really helps. Nada, what really.
The unfortunate reality is that our healthcare system isn't structured to support lifestyle intervention. The average neurology appointment lasts just 15 minutes, barely enough time to review your MRI and adjust your medication. Therefore, it falls to us, the MS community, to share these evidence-based approaches and support each other in implementing them. So here's how to start applying this knowledge tomorrow. Begin with the 5-minute promise.
All day.
Choose any movement you don't hate. Schedule it when your energy is naturally highest. For most people, this is 2 to 3 hours after wake. Stay in the moderate intensity range. You should be able to talk, but not sing. Track your fatigue levels before, immediately after, and 2 hours after.
Jeez Louise, we are feeling better.
Tracking is crucial because it helps you identify your personal pattern. Remember, MS is highly individualized. Your optimal exercise prescription will be too. When I first started working with Coach Knight, I could barely complete 10 minutes of gentle movement. Now, I can sustain 30 minutes in my optimal zone. The improvement wasn't linear. There were setbacks, days when MS symptoms flared despite doing everything right.
I told you we shouldn't have been pushing so hard.
But I discovered something crucial through consistent tracking. Even on days when symptoms increased temporarily, my overall fatigue levels were decreasing week after week. Therefore, I learned to focus on trend, not individual data points. This perspective shift was game-changing for maintaining motivation. I found that viewing movement as an act of stewardship rather than a burden has transformed my relationship with exercise. Our bodies are incredible gifts, even with MS. There's a scripture that says, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Even with MS, this remains true. Movement becomes an expression of gratitude for what our bodies can still do. This is more than exercise, it's honoring our journey. The exercise paradox remains one of the most powerful tools in my MS arsenal. When fatigue tells you to stop, that's often precisely when you need to start. That's all we need to start changing your brain chemistry.
Just 5 minutes is all we need to start changing your brain chemistry. That's all we need.
The medication that helps my MS the most doesn't come in a bottle from my pharmacy. It comes from movement. The only treatment that simultaneously addresses symptoms, potentially slows progression, and improves my quality of life. In our next video, I'll reveal the specific exercise intensity that triggers your body's natural MS-fighting compound, and it's not what most neurologists recommend. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the exact heart rate zone that maximizes neuroprotection while minimizing symptom flares. If this approach has helped you, or if you have questions, leave a comment below. This community's wisdom is one of our greatest resources in navigating life with MS.
See you in the next video. Remember, 5 minutes is all you need. I can count 5 minutes and do a whole lot of things in 5 minutes.